Fantastic.
Great.
Awesome. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining. We'll just let people trickle in. I think everyone's sort of joining now. Just give it a minute or two for a few more to join, and then we'll kick off.
Can you hear me properly, Glenn?
Yep, audio is good. Is the screen
Great.
sharing okay? It's still some?
Yeah,
Yep.
I think we're okay. Yeah, should be good.
Fantastic. Awesome. Fantastic. So I think we've got a few join now. We might make a start. So thanks so much everyone for joining. Really appreciate you taking the time to join today. You know, these webinars are something UAV Group's doing to provide a bit of value to organisations using drones in Australia. We've done one previously. We've done a few previously, but the last one was more focused around sort of our offerings around what UAV Group does, and that was a case study with one of our clients. This one's a little bit different in the sense that this webinar is more about talking about things from the technology side and looking at some interesting technology with AgEagle today, and specifically around operating drones over populated areas. So specifically talking with Simon around operating the eBee drone over populated areas in line with the new guidance that CASA released earlier this year with the temporary management instruction. And we'll be talking to that in some detail. So today's really about an informative session. We're looking to provide some value, some information for organizations using drones today, talking about how the eBee is a unique differentiator with its fixed wing structure over the multirotors, and also with the polystyrene cushion, more of a foam, easier, and that sort of fits into some of the pathways operating over populated areas, which we'll go through in more detail. So I just wanted to give that sort of introduction, and thanks everyone so much for joining. I really appreciate the time. So we'll start off, Simon, just by getting a bit of an introduction from yourself.
Yeah, sure.
Want to give us a bit of context, a little bit about AgEagle, what you do there, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Thanks, Glenn. Thanks very much. Yeah, sorry, my name's Simon. Good morning, everyone. I'm the sales director for the Asia Pacific Oceania region. So effectively, everywhere from India to Fiji, working with a lot of different partners across the region. And really my job is really just sort of support our partners in each territory, make sure they understand the product well and very well, and try and help as many different users as we possibly can to get good, safe operations going in their country. So yeah, my background is actually originally in engineering, production engineering, but for the last sort of 7 years, I've been involved in automation of various different types, robots, but now drones. And I'm very happy to be working for eBee, for Sensefly now, because eBee is it's a very niche product in some ways, but in those particular ways, it really, really nails it. It does a really good job. So I'm really looking forward to talking about that today. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thanks, Simon. And just to give everyone a bit more of an overview, just to sort of let everyone know how sort of we're structured here. UAV Group is a consulting and audit provider in the drone space. Historically, our team's done a lot in manned aviation and now in drones. So we've got deep experience in the regulatory side, safety best practice, and the technology consulting piece. So we help from that side. And eBee is obviously a best of breed vendor for UAV market. So we help with a lot of the consulting, getting procedures, processes, consulting on the regulatory side, the application side of things, lodging for the CASA applications, also the ongoing audits. We do that in that way. So that sort of gives an overview of how we sort of fit in with each other. So we'll move on to the first piece here. So just around the eBee in comparison, to a lot of the operators in Australia today using multirotors traditionally.
Yeah.
What are the main differentiators, and what are the benefits of the eBee that it solves for, and also in relation to starting to touch on the operations of populated areas?
Sure, yeah. So I think we'll talk about the CASA's guidance a little bit later. So let me just talk about eBee itself and the concept really. Yeah, eBee is not like a multi-rotor drone. As you can see, it's actually a very small fixed wing drone that flies like a bird or like a plane, if you want. So it has, all the sort of advantages and disadvantages you'd consider with a plane versus a helicopter in a way. I think the difference for us is that we started off as sort of safe operation as being a baseline. So our eBee drones are very small and very light and very compact. So we kind of started off from the point of we want it to be able to fly over people. We want to be able to fly in urban areas and all the sort of areas we want to talk about today. And then for the last 20 years, we've been building on that design structure to improve performance. By performance, I mean things like range, its ability for imaging, for taking photographs, and recently sort of live video, and also just further improving safety protocols, things like that. So yeah,
Fantastic.
it's a good product, I think.
Fantastic.
So I guess the main use cases, in comparison maybe with the quadcopter styles of drones, would be number one would be is long range. So we can fly for a long time, 90 minutes versus sort of 45 minutes for the standard sort of quadcopter. But in that time, obviously, we're flying like a bird. So we're covering a long range at the same time. So in that particular case, then, it's very useful for countries like Australia, where you're thinking about agriculture and having to cover large areas in a short space of time. And we talked about it as being very light and compact. So our eBees can be carried by one person, assembled by one person, operated by one person, and they can do all the data by themselves as well. So that has a lot of applications where in an emergency, or if the site has very difficult access and you just need to be able to get there with a backpack, maybe on the back of a quad bike or something like that. So it has lots of applications in public safety. And then recently, we've been moving more and more into sort of security forces applications. It's very small, light drone. It's very quiet, so it's quite discreet in what it does. And you could probably say it has applications with maybe the police or army, ground services, that sort of thing as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, we actually had we were on site with a client 2 weeks ago, had the eBee using it for surveying, using it for surveying, large areas within visual line of sight. But that's another area. Maybe in the future we can have another webinar around BV loss, but this one's about operations of populated people. And yeah, we saw the client use it surveying for a surveying capacity, and worked really well. And yeah, fantastic.
It's a great application if you want to fly over in these very population dense areas. And I think we'll go through the details, but I mean, what it means effectively is you're going to get data much more quickly, much more cheaply. You're going to have a nice effect on lower insurance costs for your operations. And I think ultimately you're going to get a lot more repeat business if you can do a really good job in a very short period of time. So
yeah, definitely. Awesome. So we'll move on to the next point now. Question 2. So basically this talking about the operation of populated areas, is something that we discussed, was released in early this year. And basically when we saw this as UAV, we thought, the eBee is a great fit because it's lightweight, made of polystyrene foam, has a lot of benefits there. So we've discussed this previously, but maybe you can just summarize, in terms of, what's the real value? What are the benefits for flying over populated areas? What are the pathways? Pathway 2 and 3, I believe we'll touch on. Maybe you can just take us through that.
Yeah, sure. So we've spent a lot of time getting regulation approvals in the US and the EU. So and South America, I should say, as well. So we're very familiar with that sort of area, and we're not experts on operations in Australia. I think that's kind of your place, really. But what we can see from the report, it looks quite similar to US and EU regulations. And it's actually, we're quite familiar with the sort of requirements that they're asking for. As I understand it, there's 3 main pathways, and I think leaving aside pathway 1, which is a bit of a difficult one for anyone to really cover, pathway 2 and pathway 3 are the ones that we're interested in, and where we think we can offer a lot of value. Pathway 2 is basically just based on raw performance. Terrible discussion, but if there was a terrible catastrophe of some form and the drone came out the sky and hit someone, what's the worst that could happen? what's the maximum impact that it could, it could have on that person, and what would the consequences be? So, yeah, pathway 2, you've got certain very specific gradations below 15 joules, and then between 15 and 34 joules, and then above 34 joules is what we're interested in. So we're very, very firmly in the 15 to 34. And to be honest, we're actually closer to 15. We have operated the unit below 15 joules impact, although it's not the sort of thing we want to push on. But that between that 15-34 joule region, public services in terms of emergency services, fire brigade, police, ambulance, that sort of thing, can operate our drone in highly populated areas without asking for permission beforehand from the people who are in the area. And then maybe this is, depending on how practical this you might think this is, with getting verbal permission from people in the area, you can fly our drone. Now that's quite difficult to do. So what we're really thinking, the main application we would say would be for emergency services under pathway 2. And then pathway 3 is it's less of a sort of a quantitative assessment like 34 joules or 15 joules. It's more of a risk assessment. So literally it's SORA, which is specific operations risk assessment.
Yes.
It's like a 10-step assessment protocol to assess what the likelihood of there being something horrible happen if you were to fly a drone in a particular area in a particular situation. So in that area, we have a very strong advantage, I would say, in that we are very small, and that we also have, through a lot of testing and a lot of modifications and a lot of improvements to the design, a very high rate of mitigation. So risk mitigation. So we have a -2 M2 high mitigation classification in the US and in EU. And I should just say, potentially, probably we can get that with CASA, but that's something we do need to go through with them formally just to make sure that's going to happen.
Yeah, definitely.
What effectively that means is if something terrible happens and the drone hits someone, there's less than a 1% chance of grievous injury. So yeah, you can practically, morally, fly the drone a lot easier if you're going to fly our drone in these sort of areas.
Yeah, definitely. So pathway 2 is really for emergency services, just to recap. 15-34, and then pathway 3 for the M2 mitigation. It's less than 1% of injury. So
that's right.
We need to, obviously, if our clients or business or government clients want to use the eBee, we still need to, as UAV Group, submit the application. We need to submit an application for it. And we can choose, one of these pathways. I think the real benefit is you don't need the parachute, right? On the multi-rotor, they can be expensive. Parachutes can be expensive, and this achieves pathway 3 and then pathway 2 for emergency services out the gate.
That's right. So pathway 3, this SORA application, you have to understand the situation you're in, whether you want to fly in rural area or an urban area, or how do you want to fly? So is it going to be BV loss or V loss or something like that? And then you make an assessment, first of all on the air. Well, sorry, first of all on the ground, as in what's the risk of an injury on the ground and what the consequences of that would be, and then what sort of area you're flying in. And with our drone, we believe you can get something called SAIL 2, which is a classification which requires relatively little preparation and cost in terms of time and money to get that application granted for you to do whatever operation you need to do. So SAIL 2 is definitely possible with us, even in urban areas under certain circumstances. And to a certain extent, I think that's where you guys come in. UAV Group is able to talk the people you were talking to about how they can get that air classification to a certain point, and then with the eBee and our mitigation, you can get it to that position where you can have relatively an easy job to get permission to fly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so we can help with the application process. So we'll move on now, and Simon, I think I'll you want to share your screen, so I'll
Yeah,
just pause my screen sharing, and
sure. Okay.
you can take over to share the mapping case study.
Okay.
Basically, this is a case study which we'll go through, which shows the eBee in a real urban environment operating over densely populated areas, and this could be applied to operating over a populated area here in Australia, like operating over a CBD area, with large scale mapping. So Simon, over to you
Yeah,
if you wanted
thanks.
to talk through that.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, that's coming through.
Oh, okay, great. So, yeah, so look, we've got a lot of examples around the world of flying in highly populated areas under different regulations. And in this particular case, that we're talking about Sofia in Bulgaria that we want to talk about. This particular case study is up on our website if you want to check it out for yourselves. And this is a customer we know called Geographica. They're a drone services company. This is one particular application is to fly over the center of Sofia, funded for by the Bulgarian Ministry of Environment, and I think also the World Bank, to scan the area and understand better what the consequences of flooding are going to be, and sort of mitigate for that risk as well. But actually, Geographica has used our drones, a couple of our drones, for other applications. For example, counting trees from environmental research, photovoltaics, and a variety of different things. And I think the Geographica's really reason for purchasing us was really, again, we talked about it really, but ease of getting application approval for flying over these areas, being able to scan a very large area, and just basically ease of use, really, I think, with our drones. So what you've got there, I mean, again, we can share the link a little bit later. The results are on the right-hand side, and we'll have a look at that in a second. But I just want to quickly show you, if it's okay, a video of the unit taking off. I know we need the music. This is sped up, guys, just to let you know. But in Bulgaria, it's legal to fly 2 drones at one time. And in actual fact, physically, you can fly 4 drones at one time from one ground control station with eBee. And that's our guy releasing the first drone. You can see there's a radio antenna there. They've raised the height of the radio antenna quite a bit to improve the radio link with our eBee drone. In actual fact, for military applications, you don't need that permanent link. And really the link is there just for safety purposes, so that you can bring the drone down if you need to.
Yes.
So that was just a release of the drone. But let's have a look at the results.
Yep. Perfect.
So this is, you can see almost like Google Maps there, and in the middle there is what we've scanned. So this is the very center of Sofia. And I think it's a Museum of Culture, I believe it is. So if we can zoom in there, you can get a good understanding of what the sort of quality of the image is. This particular area, this is 1,500 hectares that we scanned in 2 days with 2 drones, which is something that really you're not going to be able to get with other drones. And yeah, but really it's because of the result of it being a fixed wing drone, light one, long range one, like the one we have here. I just want to quickly just zoom in on this swimming pool, which I found, which is rather nice. So this is a scan that we took with our drone. And just to give you an idea, if we just switch over to Google Maps, there is the same swimming pool there on Google Maps. So very similar quality of resolution. And obviously with our drone, if you want to fly at a lower altitude, you can get higher resolution again. But yeah, you've got instant mapping of areas rather than having to rely on satellite imagery. I guess the main thing though would be we scanned with a single camera, but it has the ability to scan in 3D as well as in 2D. So you saw a 2D image there, but here's the 3D image that you can see of the place. So really, the customer was interested in a 3D digital twin of the entire city. And so they now have that access there so that they can do a lot of their planning. And obviously in 3D, you're going to get an awful lot more functionality and ability to plan ahead of what you want to do. So in this case, it's flood mapping. And I'm sorry, I'm not an expert on this sort of thing, but just to give you an idea, you can take that point and that point, and find out what the distance is very quickly. So that's 52 meters. And I think you can actually go up here and you can think up a route, various different things. It also gives you your altitude, and you can do volumetric analysis and a variety of different things there for doing all the sort of things you need to do for some pretty advanced architectural work.
Was there, just quickly on that, Simon, because I know there's quite a few surveyors and people working in
Yeah.
surveying functions. Is there, and this might be something we take on notice, so no stress if it's something we come back with it, but is there like an accuracy limit that
Yeah.
you guys say it has?
Depending on how you scan, I believe it can get it down to about 1.5 or I think it's 1.5 centimeters.
Yep.
Accuracy.
Yep.
You'd need, obviously you don't want to be scanning 1,500 acres with that, because you require a little bit lower altitude and a bit more flying to just make sure you can double check all that. To be honest, the amount of photographs you take improves the accuracy because you're meshing together lots of different images. But yeah, you can get very, very highly accurate results. And the US military uses that a lot for things like mission planning in those sort of cases.
Yep.
Yes.
No, that's fantastic. That's a great overview there of that mapping case study. And also, just for everyone on the call, we've got the Q&A section at the end. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in. You know, some of them we'll hopefully get to. Others we might take on notice, come back to you via email. Yeah. But that's sort of what we'll do from there.
Yeah.
Was there anything else on that case study, Simon?
Well, no, not necessarily. Obviously we can go through some of the difficulties they had. Maybe we can have a look and show you here. If you go back to the Google Maps, you can see that in this case, Sofia Airport is very close by. And so normally, you know, they had Sofia Airport is just over here, and we were scanning in this area over here as well. And so yeah, there was a lot of regulation issues, but because of eBee and its safety and you know the reputation we had, they were able to scan fairly close to the airport. And to be honest, if you're interested, the actual Geographical themselves actually did a webinar with us, and there's a link on the webpage to them talking about that. But in that particular case, it was the photovoltaics that they were discussing. So,
fantastic.
Yeah, we can talk later.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm just conscious of time, so we might move on.
Sure.
Let's the next part. Yeah. I can share my screen again.
No worries.
Yeah. Awesome. So we'll just quickly run through these last few. We've touched on the mapping case study, the public safety case study. You know, or public safety, I should say, in general. As we've mentioned, you know, pathway to emergency services can operate within 15 to 34 joules. So they can operate this, you know, when there's an emergency situation. You know, maybe you can just touch on that and give us some more detail around how that would look like and benefits there.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, eBee really is a safety first option. So really, you know, the customer's interested, you know, if the customer is going to be doing a lot of work in highly populated areas, that would be a good place to start. In the case of Australia, you've got those two different pathways. So for civil applications, obviously go through that pathway 2. For commercial operations, the pathway 3. And yeah, I think right, yeah. It's a yeah. So in terms of the pathway mitigation, I think you can probably classify the unit together with yourselves as being a low risk sail to operation, and then you can speed through applications for scanning fairly quickly.
Yeah.
So for commercial applications, yeah, it's definitely the most, we would call it a practical solution. And I think that you know, up until recently, we've just been doing photogrammetry drones, but last October, we released a new drone which was live feed, and with that live feed unit, you know, the unit can be excellent, I think, for first responders, really. So we think that there's a lot of applications there with police services, emergency services, where they want to have eyes in the air very
live
quickly.
Feed. Yep.
That's right. Yeah. So I think a little bit later I can show you some videos of that.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, it's definitely would be, we think it's very important for something like that, because it takes advantage of the fact that the eBee is very small and can be assembled and shipped off in and flown in about 3 minutes by a single operator, and then you can get live feed within a couple of minutes, and that live feed can be sent back to whatever mission control you might have. So we
Yes.
believe there's a lot of applications there.
Yes, definitely, definitely, fantastic. So we can move on now to the fifth point. So in terms of UAV Group, we've spent a lot of time with AgEagle and planning this out. We've done a lot of work in terms of looking at how the eBee models can operate over populated areas. But I guess just from your perspective, how do you see the partnership with UAV Group? How do you see that going forward, and what's the benefit of that?
So for us and for me, I'm working with sort of 20 different countries, and each country's got their own laws and regulations. So we can't pretend to be experts in every place. So what we've done, we've got a lot of experience with EU and the US, when we're an EU company and a US firm at the same time. So we understand that very well. But we need a partner like UAV Group, like yourselves, to help potential eBee clients through operating in country and understanding all the intricacies of the regulations. So I think we talked about it very recently during the discussion. There's certain mitigating circumstances where you can reclassify your flight as another type, and therefore get much quicker accreditation for flights. And we think that probably you're the guys that they're going to be able to do that for us and for the customers.
Definitely.
So,
And
we're very happy to be working with them.
Yeah, that really appreciate that, Simon. And there's customers using the eBee today here. There's plenty of case studies, and like we said the other day, a couple of weeks ago, we had a client who was using it for surveying capacity. So definitely a lot of value here. So I guess I'm just conscious of time. We're doing well, but I guess if anyone needs to drop off at the 12:30 mark, we will record this and we'll have the recording online shortly. But basically, Simon, just from your perspective, really appreciate your time. What's next? I know you mentioned you wanted to talk through the vision. What's sort of on the roadmap for AgEagle and the eBee?
So the eBee is a kind of a platform really for two different types of drone usage. The first is photogrammetry, so we're taking maps with a variety of different cameras, so you can have multispectral maps for vegetation for farming, for example, thermal maps for a variety of different applications, and then obviously you've got these very large architect areas for agricultural scanning. But then you've also got the eBee Vision now, which has just come out in last October, which is looking at live feed. And there's a lot of different applications there. Obviously, military is a major one, and security services is major. But using that same technology, we can do a lot of different applications, largely related to sort of first responder work. But you can also use it for things like checking up on operations from a remote area quite easily. So if you don't mind,
I'll just stop sharing, and then you should be able to share.
Sure. Okay. Let me see if I'm back there. Let me see.
Your screen's coming up there.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, so this is just some footage that we took. This is just a test, by the way, in South America for a customer where they use the eBee Vision to fly. I'm not sure if you can see the screen, but fly over a highly populated area and just do some sort of mock-up reconnaissance work. So on this particular case, this is a patrol mode where you're flying over the city and just sort of looking out for various different things, maybe things that may cause trouble, or maybe someone's in distress. This is the scouting mode where if you found something of interest, you can tag that area, and then eBee will automatically fly around that area at a discrete distance, and maybe you can take various different observations from there. The units flicks over to a thermal camera, so you can operate it at night, but also lots of other different applications for the thermal camera as well. It's a 32 times zoom. So in this particular case, it's the distance at 700 meters. So if you didn't want to be seen, you wouldn't be seen at 700 meters. This crowd wouldn't see you at 700 meters. And you can see, at maximum zoom, you can get a pretty decent sort of understanding of what's going on there, maybe recognize people at the same time. So I think even with thermal, you can use it for a lot of interesting applications. I believe in Italy, the police are using the function for looking for people in distress who may be need to be found, missing people. in very difficult to find areas, like for example in the Italian Alps.
Yes.
They use the eBee to search for those people very, very quickly. High speed.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Simon. We might loop back if there's a few questions.
Sure.
And
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for giving us that overview. So, Simon, eBee AgEagle is one of the best in breed from the technology side, making these UAVs operate over populated areas safely, and a lot of other use cases. UAV Group, where we fit in, is we help with the consulting side, so regulatory approvals, helping put that through. We've got Wayne now, who I think is online, who's our head of safety compliance services. And Wayne, maybe just give us a brief overview and some closing comments around this piece and what we do as UAV Group, and how we can sort of help our clients here.
Thanks, Lynn, and thanks, Simon. Yep. As Simon alluded to, we're probably in a position to be able to assist clients get their applications through to CASA. We've got 40 years experience with dealing with CASA almost on a daily basis. So we understand their processes, procedures, and the magic words that probably make things happen a little bit faster than if you decide to have a crack at it yourself. So we're here to assist, and we can help get your applications processed through CASA. And they are time consuming. You're going to spend a lot of time and money getting it through, but I think we can help mitigate that and perhaps reduce some of the time frame involved to get your applications processed. And also, I guess the other service that UAV Group offer is our safety and compliance side of the business, which is where I primarily come in. I've got lots of experience in aviation auditing and safety reviews and compliance with the regulations. So if you are in doubt as to whether you're safe or compliant and need some assistance in that area, once again, we're probably the people to talk to. We're probably the leaders in the field in Australia at the moment, I would think.
Fantastic.
Glenn, that's my pitch.
Thanks so much, Wayne. We'll go through now. I think there was a few questions coming through. Some questions we might take on notice. I think John, I saw your question here between the eBee and the Mini Mavic. We might have a look at that to see what the differences could be, if there's anything available from DJI there. But that might be something a bit more complex. Some of the other questions I think can see, maybe for Simon here, this one might be a good one. How has the eBee Vision been used in Australia and overseas? What are some of we've covered a few of the use cases, but particularly in Australia, maybe how's it used in Australia today?
Yeah, so the eBee Vision, it's just been released. We don't have a lot of customers just yet, but we do have customers who are using it who I can't really say specifically who the users are. They're classified, but it is in operation at the moment. I think worldwide, there's obviously military applications there, but security services, and I think I mentioned the police and the fire brigade are using them across Europe at the moment. But again, that would be for missing persons. I think that would probably be good examples.
Yeah, great. And yeah, like we said, they're definitely being used for some photogrammetry and surveying and stuff like that.
Sure, yeah.
Today.
So the EBX is used for a lot of
the EBX. Yep. Fantastic. So I'm just thinking, I'm looking at time. I know we had, I think the Zoom invite was for 12 to 12. So a quarter to 1. But I think that sort of wraps up a lot of our questions here. If there's any other questions, or if there's any other inquiries, feel free to reach out to us. There's some details on the screen now, and give us a call, drop us a line. We're more than happy to talk through how we can help. UAV Group and eBee, how we can help collaborate and help your organization. Simon, Wayne, was any other closing thoughts or wrap up?
No, I thanks very much for the opportunity. It's lovely to be able to talk about the eBee. I think obviously, new regulations can be confusing for people, and it's always, always difficult to have to wade through lots of paperwork. But there is obviously a reason behind it. You want to have the maximum amount of safety, when you're operating this sort of thing. And And if these drones are operated in safety and people get used to them, it can make a huge difference to the country. So yeah, we're really looking forward to being part of that.
Definitely, definitely. Awesome. Thanks so much for your time, Simon. Thanks for Wayne as well for joining. Thanks as well, everyone, for joining. And yeah, like I said, if there's any questions, feel free to reach out. But we'll conclude at this point, and yeah, look forward to the next webinar. We'll send out some details following this one. Thanks so much, everyone, for your time.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.